we're gonna be legends. Gonna get their attention. What we're doing here ain't...
Hello everyone, I'm Nicolas from Legends Tours. I'm here already home since 52 days. Now back in the Middle Ages, in times of a pandemic, they isolated people standard for 40 days. Or like the Italians used to say, a 40 giorni, where actually our word quarantine is derived from. Back in the Middle Ages, you know, they had a lot of pandemics, and one of the worst was for sure the plague. It has quite some similarities with the coronavirus today. Just like the coronavirus, the plague came from the Far East, originated in the Far East, and got traveled through merchant ships to arrive first in Italy, where it spread all over Europe. Whoever got infected died a painful death within 3 days. Only very few survived. The impact was devastating. Between 1347 and 1350, 1/3 of the European population, or about 20 million people, died. Now, a well-known image of the plague is the one of the bird doctor. As you can see here, it looks a bit strange, but actually again it's very similar to modern times. The doctor also wore long clothes as a protection. He wore boots and gloves. He wore a hat and glasses and a mouth mask. I know it looks a bit strange. It looks like a beak of a bird here. And that was because they believed that the plague was contaminated in bad smelling air. It traveled through bad smelling air. And in the beak they put a mix of over 50 herbs and ingredients, kind of aromatics, that protected the doctor from the contaminated bad smelling air. And at last you also see the doctor had a staff to keep the social distance from the patients. Now, one of the people that survived the plague was a man named Rochus. Rochus was born in the 1300s, and at a certain age he decided to give away all his possessions and to travel Europe and only take care of sick people suffering from the plague. Eventually he got infected as well, and to protect the other people he decided to isolate himself deep in the forest. Now, suffering the disease, he lost strength and he couldn't find food anymore. Luckily for him, there was a dog from a nearby town that came to visit Rochus every day. And every day the dog would pick up some old bread from the street in town and bring it to Rochus in the forest. And like this, Rochus had his food every day, kept on surviving, and suddenly he even healed the disease. And it was then that he received the order from God to go back to his hometown. Upon arrival in his hometown, the people didn't recognize him anymore. And it was his own uncle that accused him to be a spy. And so Rochus was arrested and locked up in prison. Now in prison he kept on taking care of the sick people, until at last, after 8 years, he died in his cell. In 1485 his relics were brought to Venice, and since then he's been honored as the patron saint of the sick and imprisoned. And you can find his statue all over the world, like here in Bruges. And on his statue you can always recognize Rochus as a pilgrim with a hat and a staff, and he will always pull up his skirt to show the scars of the plague on his leg. And next to the leg you always see his dog sitting with a piece of bread in his mouth, reaching to his paws.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share, and you can always leave a donation for the guide. There'll be more videos on our YouTube channel, so subscribe and stay tuned.